Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Voices of Monadnock. My name is Anena Hansen, and I'm here representing the Monadnock Family Services Trauma-Informed Communities Program and the Greater Monadnock Collaborative Chamber of Commerce. We're working together to talk with people who live all over the area about what makes the Monadnock region special, what people around here are up to, and just sort of our day-to-day experiences. So, today we have with us Kathy Bergstrom. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about what brought you to the Monadnock region?
So my husband, Bruce, actually grew up going to Christian camp in Swanzey every summer, and Swanzey Lake was actually the site of one of our first dates. Actually,
Nice.
On the lake. It was frozen. We walked across the lake. It's very romantic. A year and a half later, we got married on Swanzey Lake. Vacationed there.
On the ice again?
No, there's a chapel, actually.
Gotcha.
Right on the lake. And then it just became our summer vacation place when we had our children, and it became a very favorite place of theirs. So we thought, oh, one day we would love to live there. And in 2020, the last piece of property became available on Swanzey Lake, and I happened to know the person who owned the property. So everything just fell into place. It seemed like we were meant to be here. So
Yeah.
we've been here for 2 years.
2020 was someday, huh? Wow, that is so cool that you have that history of it, coming to the region, and finally making this your home. So how has it been, these couple of years of living here?
It's been great, actually. We love it here. People ask if we miss Connecticut. We lived in Connecticut in our community in the Farmington Valley for 25 years. And I don't miss Connecticut per se. I miss the neighborhood because 25 years, you get to know people really well. And we had a sense of community because we're very involved. So I've been creating that here because that's the kind of person I am. I like to be involved in things. So one thing at a time, one person at a time. So building community here.
And how has that process been for you? Where are you as far as feeling like you're getting that community around you that makes it feel like home?
So being involved in the Greater Monadnock Collaborative Chamber of Commerce, I'm on the board of directors and program subcommittee, so I get to do a lot of great things with that group. I am on the Swanzey Economic Development Committee, so meeting a lot of people who work for the town of Swanzey, and I do support group for women who've experienced trauma. So yeah, I find ways to be involved.
Nice. And even before I was working with this trauma responsive Monadnock program, I had met you and just kind of ping, ping, ping about your program with women. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I had experienced abuse as a child and a young adult. And I was one of those people who, I've met a lot of them over the years, who when asked how I am, I would say, fine. And I thought I was. And then realized, no, I really wasn't, because that abuse had impacted me. And it manifested itself in very unexpected and challenging ways. Always at the worst possible time, of course. So I went through this program, Mending the Soul, which helps people deal with the trauma that came from that abuse and just facing it, walking through it, putting a name to it, and identifying coping mechanisms and ways to move through it, because it doesn't just go away.
Right.
So things will still trigger, and things still, I'm in a really good place with all of that, but I'm still halted from time to time with something, but just knowing what it is and then how to move through it. So I became a facilitator so that I could help other people with that process, and it's been incredibly rewarding.
Were you doing that before you came here also?
Yes, I started in 2014.
Okay, and then you brought that up here and you're doing it locally here in the Monadnock region
Well, now
as well?
because of electronics, I've been doing it virtually, so I've worked with women all over the United States, actually.
Hey. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any plans to do an in-person group here in Monadnock, do you think, or is it too small?
I would absolutely be open to that. Yeah, if there's a need, which I think there is a need, but it's just getting in touch with people.
Well, and see, that's the thing, because there's not very much societal permission to talk about these sorts of experiences.
Right.
Nobody's walking around being like, hey, this happened to me. Does anybody have a support group for me? So how do you let people know that, or, how do you connect with the people who are looking for this kind of support?
Well, some people found me online. Actually, the people who are across the United States, I'm not sure what words they used in their search, but they found me on the Mending the Soul website. I have spoken at churches about this program, and I've had women approach me after those talks. Interestingly, when I spoke at my home church when we lived in Connecticut, at the end of the program, 2 men came up to me and said, I'm really glad we're having this conversation because nobody talks about this. And this was the most powerful message I've ever heard in this church.
Wow.
That's telling you something.
Yeah. So what do you think can be done to make this taboo subject something that we do talk about? How can we change that?
Mental health or trauma or all of it?
Yeah, I guess all of the above. They're saying, oh, I'm so glad you're talking about this because nobody talks about it. So whatever that general this is, as far as having been abused as a child and the impact, which, as we know, it does follow us, and it shows up in so many different ways in adulthood that many times people aren't even making that connection, and that's part of the problem because nobody talks about this. So as far as helping people make that connection and just helping it be something that it's okay to say, hey, this happened to me, where can I find some support? How do you think we can start changing that conversation?
Well, having this conversation with you, and hopefully people will hear about it, going into places like churches or community centers and having a forum to say this is available for you, these are the resources, like the conversation we had Monday in Keene about mental health and Monadnock Family Services.
Right, that was Judge Broderick was here, Judge Tina Nato was here. That was a great conversation.
And a gentleman who they called him a consumer, but someone who's walking through his challenge with mental health and was very brave and got up and talked about it. So having conversations like that, I think, is a good first step.
Yeah, I agree. So have you experienced any pushback from people ever telling you, like, don't talk about this? Why are you bringing this out into public?
Only, again, I had mentioned this to you earlier, but when my husband learned that I was going to do this and to let people know I'm offering this service, being a facilitator of small groups, he panicked and like, you're going to tell people about your past? And even though it was not a reflection on him, but just because the perception is you got it all together. Well, everyone has something. I'm not saying everyone was traumatized, but everyone has something you can't see by looking at them.
Yeah.
So, and you could be 10 feet away from someone, just have that conversation and say, oh, I'm not alone in this. Exactly.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. That's the thing. Well, it's one of the things I've learned since coming into the world of trauma in general is, we are such social creatures as mammals, as humans. We are dependent on other humans for our survival. A newborn baby just doesn't get dropped in the grass and it fends for itself. And for many years we are dependent, but then even once we reach this age of cultural majority, and now I'm an adult and I go take care of myself in the world, even then, something that isn't, again, really talked about that much is we are still social creatures till the day we die. And humans have these really fundamental needs for a sense of safety and a sense of support. That connection with other humans. People who are isolated die or die inside, at least, if not physical. It's so damaging. So that's been such an interesting thing to me, to contextualize that, things that sometimes society is like, oh, don't be so needy, take care of this by yourself. No, that is contrary to our biology. We need to ask other people to help us with this. This is how we survive and thrive, in cooperation with other humans. This is where our sense of wellness comes from.
Absolutely.
So it's an interesting, different angle to this whole idea of like, don't talk about it, don't ask for help, don't let anybody know what happened to you, take care of it on your own.
Right.
No, it's not good for us. I mean, there's different levels and situations of everything, but in a general sense, it's not good for us to take care of that stuff, to handle that stuff on our own.
Right. And I had a physical challenge 8 years ago now, and was talking to someone close to me, and she said, you help other people a lot. That's just my nature. And she said, ask them. When people say, can I help you? It's usually just such a vague statement, like, how can I help you? Make a list of all the things that you will need help with. And when somebody says, how can I help you? Point to something on that list, especially if you know they're good at it. Do you know I had people coming to my house vacuuming for me because I said, could you vacuum? Yes. And they were so happy to do it. It felt great. It felt so great to be loved in all those different ways by all those people. And they enjoyed doing it. So that was a huge revelation for me.
Isn't that lovely? Because also a human need in us is satisfied. Like to support somebody else satisfies our own need for that connection as well.
Right.
I've heard that too in the context of, if somebody has had a disaster or is just facing a challenge, not to go to them and say, how can I help? But what can I do? As the asker, also to get really specific. Is there a task? What is the task I can do to help you? Anyway, that's a bit of a bunny trail, but it all kind of fits together in this idea of we're so relational as humans, and we all benefit from that interplay of helping and being helped.
For sure.
So how do you see that playing out for you in this role where, you're in the Monadnock region? You're not just exclusively treating women here, but anyway, you're here and this is what you do. How does it play out for you as the person giving that help? How has your experience been now that you are the facilitator offering this support to other people?
It's fascinating because every single woman is different, as one would expect. So they don't go through the process the same as one another. It's wonderful to have them in a community. Like I will not do a group smaller than 2. 4 is really good because we have time to get through each segment each week. But how they come to rely on one another. It's really interesting for me because the first time I did it, I thought, oh, there's 12 chapters in this resource, so I can do this many sessions a year. After the first one, I thought, oh my gosh, no, I need to take a break. Because even though, again, I'm in a good place, it's a heavy lift because I have to share my story with them to model, here's how you share a story without getting really graphic or into the weeds. And then I have to model empathy for them. Excuse me. But so I'm unearthing it again, even though, again, I've got perspective on it, but it just brings it to the surface. So I realized going through it the first time, again, back in 2014, like 3 or 4 weeks in, I'm moving around the house and I'm really snarky all of a sudden. Things that normally wouldn't bother me were bothering me. And I thought, what is this? And I'm carrying all this around with me again. I need to process. So I would just make sure I didn't schedule anything immediately after. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, I would just take a break and not have to be anything for anyone for a little while. So
that's the self-care. Huh? Well, it's interesting because our nervous systems, when we get really dysregulated in an experience of trauma, abuse, whatever, the system is in fight or flight, or even just moving beyond that into shutdown when you can't run and you can't fight back and you just freeze and go into it. And the impact that has, the dysregulation of the nervous system. And then time goes by, you have adult capacities now, you're talking with other adults, but when you go into that topic matter, it's like you go back there and that dysregulation comes into the system. And so when you're in a group of people doing that together, you as the facilitator sort of have this de facto role as your nervous system is regulating the others.
Right.
like they're talking about this for the first time, and that is a huge, a pull on you, a drain on your resources, because you're not just regulating yourself through this re-experiencing of this thing from long ago. You're regulating other people too.
Right.
And your nervous system has to take care of all of you.
Yeah. And I gotta say, one of the most rewarding moments in these groups, one of the women who came, and they have to go through an intake process to make sure they're in the right space and that there's a good fit for us and all. And when she went through that, said, I've never told anyone my story, and I don't plan to. Mm-hmm. And I said, it's not a requirement. It will help if you do, but it's not a requirement. I'm not going to call on you. And I said, it's like any other resource. You use it how it benefits you. So there's no wrong way, per se. Well, that particular group took 17 weeks to get through all the material. Halfway through, she had left the session. She must have just waited till she got to her car, because 2 minutes after she walked out of the room, this was in person, she texted me and said, do you still have the materials on how to tell your story? Because I gave everyone a guideline to give them a starting off point, because it's hard, tell me your story. It's it's all of this. How do I, narrow it down? So she was so sure she wasn't going to tell the story, she threw those resources away.
Okay.
And now halfway through, she thought, okay, I think I'm ready. And so I said, absolutely. I emailed them to her. The following week, she walked in and said, I want to tell my story. Don't anyone interrupt me. I said, you just give me the nod when you're ready. And she did. At the end of all of that, 17 weeks later, I went around the room and what worked, what didn't work, what can I do better? And she said, I am confounded. I shared my story with you, and I feel so much better. And I thought, that's what keeps me coming back and doing this, because my story, I was able to look at it and say, yeah, those weren't good things, because I used to justify them and minimize them, and that was my coping. And when I actually put truth to it and said, no, that was not good, what happened, but that doesn't define me either. And so to get to a place where I can actually help other women walk through this and see redemption there, then I just feel like, okay, that's like a full circle moment for me. So
awesome. I love that. Thank you for telling us all about that. With the time we have left, I'd like to kind of come back to the area here with you as somebody who has a long-standing history with the Monadnock region, but you're only recently a resident here. What do you like most?
Actually, well, I love the area. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, and there's so much to do outside, which is fabulous. And the neat thing is, I have met so many people, like a really great cross-section. There are people who've lived here forever, and there are people who have lived here for 10 years, and there are people who just got here. And everybody is happy about that. So, you don't get those people that's like, oh yeah, I lived here. It's like, hey, I've lived here my whole life. And I still, again, we've been here 2 years. When I turn that corner to go on my road, I get this feeling like, oh, I get to live here. So I still feel that I get to live here. So it's a cool thing.
It is, right? I grew up here. And in my early 20s, I couldn't get away fast enough, and then by my early 40s, I'm like, I want to go home. And I moved back here with my daughter 4 years ago, and less frequently now, but it still happens just like that. Oh, I'm back. I'm just so happy to be home.
Right.
And I'm so happy to live here. It is such a beautiful area. I know you're involved with the Chamber, the Greater Monadnock Collaborative. Tell us a bit about that and the other things that you've gotten into since coming here.
So I got involved with the Chamber because I met, how did I meet? Oh, he came because I was involved in economic development. Luca Paris, who's the president of the Chamber, came to speak to economic development and was talking about the Chamber and different opportunities. And again, I like to be involved, and he said there was a need. So I reached out to him, what do you need? And then got involved with the Chamber and Leadership Monadnock, which was a great opportunity to learn about the region, to meet a whole bunch of people. And then again, every time somebody says, oh, we need somebody to do this, I think, oh, do I have the skill set? I bet I could help there. So that's just my nature. So it's the kind of thing I do. One of the things I realized, like with Monday's program about mental health, asking people for things as we're putting together this event, like I reached out to Phil Wysick at Monadnock Family Services. Hey, we need help with a venue. You got it. So people are just so willing to pitch in a lot of different ways, but I have not hit a stone wall yet when I've asked somebody to help with something. So that's fabulous.
Awesome. And I think that is very true. I get that feedback a lot from people in other parts of the state as I talk about, those trauma-informed community work that we're starting here and all the different fields that it brings together, the different sectors. And people in other parts of the state say, oh, well, yeah, but you're in the Monadnock region and it's so collaborative there, which I had never thought was special. Like, oh, just everywhere in the world people work together like this.
Right.
But there really is something about the Monadnock region where there's that sense of helpfulness. I think, we just have this identity of we're this little corner of the world and we take care of each other. I don't know, but that is a consistent
it's a good
message
thing
that happens, people saying, yeah, in the Monadnock region, everybody will help out with things.
Yep.
And get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Good. Kathy, thank you so much for being here and talking about your life here. Just to finish up, what are you excited about going forward, and what you get to do and be here in this area? What's calling to you right now?
I'm actually not really sure what might be different. My faith informs my conduct, so I usually wait to hear, like, okay, I need you to step out here or pull away from there. So I've been praying a lot lately to tell me, okay, what's next?
Okay, so you kind of have a blank slate of possibility before you right now.
Right.
How cool.
Yeah.
Well, from what I see of you, you step in to be involved where you can. So whatever comes next will probably be something pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
Cool. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you everyone for tuning in to Voices of Monadnock.